Okay, so wow. Building on Damon's truly amazing introduction to Paperbase and its many features, I now want to walk through a number of use cases to demonstrate how this new resource can support a wide range of research questions related to the history of 20th century photography. By working through these case studies together, I hope you all become more familiar with how Paperbase works and begin to think about how you might use this tool in your own research. I'm going to start with some more kind of granular, narrow searches that focus on specific paper characteristics, and then I'll turn to case studies that examine broader trends in photographic papers across the 20th century. All right, so let's get in here. I'm also not as familiar with using this on Windows, but hopefully it'll be fine. Damon, you did great. So to begin, let's imagine that you are reading through an artist archive or another primary source, and you come across an unfamiliar or vague term used to describe a paper or print. Something like the color special cream or a linen textured paper. Rather than spending a lot of time Googling these terms, which often yield strange and incorrect results, you can come directly to Paperbase to see for yourself what these properties look like, among other information. So let's start with the example of special cream. To find the papers with that color, we're going to go over to the filter panel, and we're going to scroll down to base color. And there we're going to click on special cream. And then those examples, as Damon explained, kind of pop up in our collections panel. To get more information about all of these, we can use this button here to pull them up in that information panel at left. And we can take a look at our results. And right off the bat, we can see here that all of these special cream papers in our collection are Gavelux papers produced by the Belgium-based manufacturer Gevert. Given this set of results, it's likely that Gevert may have been the only company to use this base color description. And this could be very useful for you to know if you are unfamiliar or unsure of the manufacturer of the paper that you are researching. Further, it could be the case that this base color was only used for Gavelux papers, though you might want to do some more research to confirm that. And in our next panel, we're actually going to hear about a great new resource for studying Gevert papers, so we can stay tuned for that. All right, so now let's take a look at the actual base color of these papers. And to do that, we can use this kind of paint bucket box up here. This paper here, as Damon explained, is one that for whatever reason we weren't able to measure the color for, which is why it's sort of transparent there. But what we can see when we look at these, the kind of base colors, is that these papers are, very warm in tone. They sort of remind me perhaps of the color of wheat. So this is one level on which you can understand and describe the base color special cream by looking at examples of this color in Paperbase and then describing it in your own words. However, you can also be more specific and compare it to others from the same period to put it into context. In other words, you can use Paperbase to test your intuition that this is a very warm paper by seeing how it compares to others offered during the same time period. And to do that, we are going to move into the histogram view. So first I'll clear this here, and then we'll click that, and we're going to organize our data by year, and then by base color. And let's see, where are our special cream papers? Okay, there we go. You can see some of them there, and I might be going the wrong direction. Okay, but we'll just leave it at that for now. All right, so how this kind of, what the histogram is showing us is that the papers are organized into these bars based on their year of manufacture, with the warmest tone papers at the extreme ends, and then the coolest tone papers there in the middle. And what we see when we look at these papers in the context of the mid-1930s to the about 1960, which is when this paper was manufactured, and I'll try to find our other examples here. There we go. There they are. Is that consistently these papers are at that kind of very extreme end of these bars, which is where the warmest papers are. So these are, in fact, some of the warmest papers produced during this period. So as this example suggests, you can not only use Paperbase to see actual examples of what special cream looks like, but you can also put it into context with other papers to more accurately assess its characteristics. So we are a little rushed on time, so I'm going to skip the example of linen texture, though we can certainly come back to that in the Q&A. So the next example I want to focus on relates to the toning of prints. Another topic many of us have likely encountered in artist papers and other primary sources. And as you may know, it can be difficult to imagine how a specific toner visually impacts a print based on textual descriptions alone. But Paperbase can help us clarify this. As Damon mentioned, we documented all known examples of toned papers within our sample books, which we can find using the filter bar. So we'll clear things and we'll go over here. And then our tone papers are down towards the bottom. All right, here we are. So here we can see all the toners that we encountered in the collection. And let's take a closer look at the Flemish toner. And we can pull up the examples here. And we can see that this was produced by Ansco. So now to see how this toner visually impacted prints, we can look at examples of these prints from our sample books. To bring those up, we're going to click this button at top here. And as you can see, that brings up these images. I find it especially useful to see these in the detail panel, which is here. And here we have a really kind of nice spread from one of our sample books. It's especially helpful in this context because at left we see an example of an untoned Ansco Argira paper right next to one that has been toned with the Flemish toner. And as we can see, what the Flemish toner does is to give the print a much warmer, rosier look. On the subject of toning, another great feature of Paperbase is that we have the processing instructions for our packages, for many of the packages of paper in our collection. And as you saw a little bit earlier, these detail how the papers were worked in the darkroom, including toning practices. So let's look at the processing instructions for one of the more commonly toned papers in the collection, which is Agatha Ansco's Sicon paper. So again, we'll clear. And then to bring this up, we're going to again go to the filter panel. We'll first filter by brand. So we'll go down to Sicon. And then next, we'll go down to that button related to processing instructions, which is here. So we'll click true. And we see that we get two results. So let's take a look at these. All right, as Damon explained, to bring up the processing instructions, you first go to the detail view and then to that little beaker button at top left. All right, and this brings up the papers in a new tab. And I realize this may be a little bit hard to read, but hopefully you can see it. So as we can see from this example, processing instructions can tell you a lot about a given paper. So as we can see here in this description in its general information and uses, Sicon is described as a warm-toned contact printing paper with an artistic character. And then if we scroll down further, we'll also get more technical information about working this paper in the darkroom. And then finally here, we have some information about toning. While we're not given a lot of technical specifics here, it is interesting to learn that when using Ansco's Flemish toner, it is recommended that the prints be made somewhat darker than usual to achieve the desired effect. All right, so now that I've done a few narrower searches, I'm now going to go over some use cases that examine broader trends in photographic papers across the 20th century. And the first case I want to look at will focus on Kodabromide, a popular brand of photographic paper produced by Kodak. So let's start by simply bringing up those papers in our collection. So we're going to go down to brand and scroll down to Kodabromide. And you'll notice here that Kodabromide is in a dark oval in the filter panel, which, as Damon explained earlier, means that it's one of the more commonly represented brands in our collection. And we can click on this, and indeed, we have many instances of this paper within our collection. So there are many ways that we can start exploring this kind of large group of papers from here. A kind of simple and nice way to start is to sort these papers by year to see the chronological range represented in the collection. To do that, we're going to go down here and sort by year. All right, so let's click, and I'm going to go into click mode here. Some of these ones at top. Great, so here, we're seeing some of our earliest papers, which are from 1942. And then if we come down here at the bottom, we are seeing our latest papers, which are from 1995. And I should say that this range is very close to the actual production dates of Kodabromide, which was introduced by Kodak in 1940, or around 1940, and phased out in 1999. To get more information about the brand and its properties, we can look at the expressiveness of these papers over time, again using the histogram view. So we'll bring this over here, and we will sort by year. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like, as Damon was showing you earlier, you could kind of narrow the search of the papers by a given date range to see which ones were available. The one caveat I would give to that is that, of course, our collection is not comprehensive, right? It is, I think, the largest known collection of its kind in the world, but like most collections, it doesn't include everything.
So due to the date range, the dates aren't reflective of this paper was introduced in 1960 and
No.
stopped being made in 80s or something. It's just like, this is what was commercially available.
Or this is what is available from that time in our collection, which is generally reflective of what's commercially available, but again, not totally inclusive of everything. Yeah, that's a great question. If anyone else has questions, you can ask now while we are, yeah, please.
In the context of your collection and the 20th century, is there any Polaroid examples?
No, there are not any Polaroids in the collection to my knowledge, right, Paul? Yeah.
Yeah, we typically focused on black and white I focused on black and white papers. There is some chromogenic materials, but I don't think we have any Polaroid examples, unfortunately.
Would that be an area that would interest you?
Yes.
Paul's interested in all the papers.
No paper left behind.
Born in Connecticut and introduced the one-step peel apart to his shareholders in 1948. And when you're talking about the thickness of the photo object, that we don't necessarily.
I'm not seeing anything. No.
So Paul, if that does interest me, so you need to follow this up.
Okay, excellent.
All right, everyone, so this is back up on the screen, but it's not on my screen up here. So this is just going to take, oh, everyone can hear me? Okay, great. Yeah, the mic is on.
Is it? I think they might just be hearing your voice.
Hopefully I'm projecting well. Okay. Yay, we're back. All right, everyone. Very sorry for that interruption. I'll try to move through really fast so we can get back to the Q&A. All right. Okay, so we were looking at Kodabromide papers, just to pick up where we left off. And what we did, we're in the histogram view, and we sorted them by year and expressiveness. And we can kind of take a look at the results that we have here. And one thing that we can, kind of notice sort of immediately is that codobromide papers appear both at these, kind of upper ends of the bars, or the extreme ends, I should say, which is where the more expressive papers would fall, as well as in the center, which is what, where the more kind of utilitarian papers would fall. So in other words, we can very quickly see that codobromide was a paper that came in a wide range of surfaces. And we can take a look at some of these by clicking on them. All right, so I'll just pull up a few so we have like a nice range. Okay, so we can see just for this year 1960, we have a surface A, a surface E, a surface N, a surface V, and there are certainly many others. So yeah, just for this 1 year, Kodak was making, 4 and certainly many other surfaces for codobromide paper. Sorry, I did opal down here, my apologies, take that one out. Sadly, this range of surfaces did not last. So if we move kind of ahead in time, especially as we move towards the 1990s, which was the last decade that these papers were produced, we're going to see a much smaller range. So we can click on these papers, which are the last ones, which were produced in 1995. All right, so we'll see at top, we have a paper that is described as smooth, matte-dry, white, double weight. And then next we have one that is smooth, matte-dry, white, single weight. So 2 different surfaces, but only varying in terms of the paper weight, and we see those repeated again in the second 2. And I should say that codobromide was not the only paper whose surface options narrowed towards the end of the 20th century. This was true for the vast majority of silver gelatin papers. As color and later digital photography increased in popularity over the second half of the 20th century, most manufacturers produced a more limited range of silver gelatin papers. All right, so I'm going to do one more broader search before wrapping up. And here I want to look at the term white, which is, as Damon said earlier, one of the more common descriptors of base color of photographic papers. We're going to look at how this sort of appeared across the 20th century. And to do that, we're going to move into the scatter plot view. Okay, we'll bring that here. And we're going to sort things by year and then by base color. Let me see if I can sort of bring this, so we can see this a little better.
You can scroll to zoom.
Scroll.
The scroll wheel.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Damon. Yes, okay, there we go. So before we even look at the term white, we can already see a general trend here in the base color of photographic papers. In the early 20th century, as we can see here, there's a much higher prevalence of warmer toned papers. And then as we kind of move towards the end of the 20th century, we end up with a higher prevalence of cooler toned papers. So we can already see something interesting just looking at the data this way. But now let's look specifically at the color white. All right, so we'll select that here. Great, and we'll move this out of the way so we can take a better look. So looking at the results, we can see that white as a descriptor of base color was not stable across the 20th century. And unsurprisingly, it follows that general trend from warmer towards more cooler tones. In technical terms, the shift towards brighter, cooler whites can partly be explained by the introduction and growing prevalence of optical brightening agents, which were introduced into photographic papers in the 1950s and 60s, a topic we'll hear more about in the next panel. However, I think it would also be very interesting to research this shift and how the color white was understood and used in the photography industry, alongside broader cultural and social concepts of whiteness over the course of the 20th century. So while I've only touched on a small number of the capabilities of Paperbase here, I hope that these case studies have offered some concrete ways in which you all might begin to use Paperbase in your own research. As we head into the Q&A, we invite you to share searches that you would be interested in running and to make suggestions for search features that you might like to see added. Paperbase is still a work in progress, and we are eager to make adjustments that will make it more useful to photography researchers. Thank you, and we look forward to continuing the questions.